Greetings, students, and welcome to another fun-filled day here at Horror in the Halls. What's up, kids, and welcome to Horror in the Halls. I'm Bob, aka Mr. Holland.
And I'm Jenny, aka Mrs. Hill.
And we're just two high school teachers talking about the spooky stuff we love. And it's a new month here, and with that, a new lesson plan. February is Black History Month here in the halls, and to start us off in this week's lesson, Be Our Victim, as we discuss 1992's classic, Candyman.
Yes.
Yes, I love this movie.
I do too. I was really surprised because I have never seen it. So I loved it. So.
I know, that's why I was like, yeah, we got to do Candyman. As soon as you said I've never seen it, I was like, yeah, that's it.
I don't know why I've never seen it.
I don't either.
Oh, I'm weird.
It's great though. I mean, Candyman's a good one. So let's get to the deets, and then we'll get into it. So Candyman again was released in 1992. Came out September 11th, 1992. At the International Film Festival, and then wide release in October 16th, 1992. That's a good release date for a horror movie, right before Halloween. That's like sweet spot. Runtime 101 minutes. Directed by Bernard Rose, who's considered a pioneer of digital filmmaking. He was kind of one of the earliest ones. You know, he's best known for directing Paper House, Candyman, of course, historical romances, A Moral Beloved, and Anna Karenina. Or Karina. I don't know why I said it.
Karenina.
Karenina. There you go. So I knew you would know. He also wrote the screenplay. This is actually based on The Forbidden by Clive Barker, which I love Clive Barker. So that partially kind of was what piqued my interest originally, because I super love Clive Barker. Cinematography by Anthony B. Richmond, which he did a really good job.
Yeah.
Had a budget of $8 to $9 million, somewhere in there. The box office was 25.8, so I think that's pretty good for 1992.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Had a 79% on Rotten Tomatoes with a 63% audience score, which I feel like should be higher, but I'm sure there's reasons for that. It's 3.7 on Letterboxd, which is...
I mean, I feel like that's pretty good.
Yeah.
3.7.
Doesn't Letterboxd only go to 4?
I'm not sure. It might.
Yeah, I don't use it a lot, so I don't know. But yeah, if it only
goes
to 4.
Johnny would know this answer, and I have failed him.
That's fine.
Because he uses it all the time.
I did too.
I use Goodreads.
I don't use it at all, so... I don't trust critics' opinions of things because they are ridiculous. I only go by my own, because people usually hate things.
I think he just likes to log all the movies that he's watched.
Yeah. I thought about doing that. It was too much. It was just so many movies. I was like, I don't have time for this.
That's just a hobby of his. It's like an extra thing to add. He just likes it. It's funny.
That's fine. I'll have to ask him. Hey, Johnny. Great cast of this. We have Virginia Madsen as Helen Lyle. She's playing the female lead. Tony Todd as Candyman, of course. Xander Berkeley as Trevor Lyle, Helen's husband. He's a jerk, but great character. Great actor, rather.
Yeah.
Vanessa Williams as Anna Marie McCoy. Cassie Lemons as Bernadette. And, of course, there's a whole lot of people those are like kind of your main cast members there. DeJuan Guy as Jake. Jake plays a kind of a good role. He's cool. Great film. I really loved it. So many interesting things in this movie. So let's give you a quick thing if you've not seen Candyman, which, again, Jenny hadn't seen it, so I guess it's not unheard of, but for me, that's so shocking. Essentially, the plot, while researching urban legends, a University of Chicago graduate student, which is Helen Lyle, learns of the Candyman, a spirit who kills anyone who speaks his name 5 times, not to be confused with Bloody Mary. You say his name 5 times, not 3, in front of a mirror. She learns of a recent murder at the Cabrini Green Homes public housing project and 24 others that have been attributed by locals to the Candyman. Of course, she's skeptical. Her and her friend go to repeat the Candyman's name in the mirror. Nothing happens, and then it progresses from there. As you probably guessed, he eventually shows up because, it's a horror movie called Candyman.
Yes.
I love this movie. I know there's a lot of back and forth views on it based on some of the racial undertones and how some of it was taken, and of course the area, and a lot of just kind of not directly forefront, but a lot of the underlying kind of subtext of the film. But I love it. I think it's a great movie. I think Tony Todd is a phenomenal actor, and his voice in this and his presence just lends to such a he's so ominous. It leads me to one of my first fun fact of the day. Apparently the original casting choice for this was going to be Eddie Murphy.
Oh no, that would not have been good.
No, not at all. And the director was like, no, he's too short. Thank God. that he's so short. They're
Oh,
like, so we
he's
need someone
huge.
imposing. Yeah, Eddie Murphy's only like, let me see here. I wrote it down because like, why would you pick? Yeah, Eddie Murphy's only 5'9", so they chose Tony Todd for his height mostly because he's six
Yeah,
foot five.
and not to mention he's so well known for his comedy that I don't think that people would have taken that movie as
No,
seriously
it'd have been a
as
commercial
they.
flop.
Yeah, it wouldn't have made as much money, I don't think.
I mean, people might hate me, but
I
every
think
time he does serious, he's trash.
because he's funny. He
Yeah,
needs to stick with funny.
yeah.
It's okay. Some people are just better at that stuff, you
Yeah,
know?
I mean, he's not a bad actor all around, but he's not. I don't think I can't see him being a killer in a movie. So I'm really glad it did
No.
not go to him. But yeah, what'd you think?
Well, I loved it. There are so many good aspects of this movie that I thought were so well done. Like when we get to the rubric, I feel like it's gonna score high in my eyes, but I don't really know how you feel about it. But between like the music, the characters, the storyline, like the writing was well done. I like the urban legend take on Candyman. I also liked I'm noted because you talk about like the urban setting. I think that they did it justice because it shows the racial unrest between, people's, plight, because being that I taught in an urban setting for the first 5 years of my career, I got to see things and hear things that to me should be at the forefront. And I thought they just did a really good job at taking a huge look at that and making Candyman more like he said he kept calling them his followers because they were so scared of him.
Yeah, or his congregation.
His congregation, yeah, like he had to keep his name alive to stay alive, basically.
Yeah.
So I just really, I just thought it was so well done, and I appreciated a lot of the shots and the music
Oh
and the
yes.
characters, like it's and the graffiti work and like just the grittiness of the Cabrini Green, and like I just thought it was all just so well done. Like there's a good juxtaposition between Cabrini Green and her apartment complex, which
Yeah.
was like more high end, but it was the same, essentially the same layout, same apartment complex, except it was made better.
Yeah, they do a good job of using gentrification and like just how Chicago was to talk about like the trauma of slavery being painted over during the Reconstruction and just
Mhm.
how it was kind of Caprini Green was built as because I mean that's a real place or it was it's gone now. I think it was torn down in 2011. I think there was a ton of rampant crime there. A lot of
Yeah.
this movie is based on an actual murder that took place in Cabrini Green and how the person committed it is all like based in fact. Like the
Okay.
woman,
I didn't know that.
the woman that the two I can't remember her name right now. The two cleaning ladies talk about being murdered in Cabrini Green where the guy came through her mirror.
Ruthie Jean.
Yeah, Ruthie Jean, that's a real murder that actually happened.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that.
So the guy in the movie who calls himself Candyman, the one that beats up Virginia Madsen's character,
Mhm.
is based on what they did was they used spaces between the units in the building to squeeze through and break in apartments that way. So he actually did
Oh,
come through the
okay.
medicine cabinet because if you don't never built a house or never changed out a medicine cabinet, you just cut a hole in the wall and shoved that cabinet in.
Yeah. Well,
So
I told
essentially,
Johnny that this morning. I
yeah,
was like, I would be so upset if I was that close to my neighbor.
yeah, oh yeah,
He's like, he goes, Jenny, we've lived in so many apartments. We probably weren't that close to our neighbor. I was
yeah.
like, that's so terrible.
I'd
I
say
don't want to be
every
that
apartment you've
close.
probably ever been in, the
I
one
know.
across from you, if you share a bathroom wall, if you took out your medicine cabinet, you could knock on their drywall. Like that's where they're at. That's how close it
Yeah,
is.
no, I could. That's creepy to me.
And apparently in the real crime, and like I may have read it incorrectly, but from what I was reading and looking into, these group of young men were squeezing themselves through the spaces between and going into apartments that way. And they broke in and murdered that woman like legitimately in Cabrini Green. That's a real place. So it was cool that they showed that and how they used it as the setting to kind of speak about it. Because when they built that, it was supposed to be like a nice housing project where everybody could live and build this like community or whatever in low
Yeah.
income housing, and then it became like we just ignore it. Let's it's where we shoved all of the black people we don't want to deal with, right? For all the society in the area. So I
Yeah.
think personally they did a good job of that, especially taking a character that was originally white because the Candyman in Cloud Barker's story is not a black person. Like he gets a lot of heat for like stealing from African American folklore, but he's like, have you read my story? It's a white person. Candyman's made up. Clive Barker made this up. It's not an urban legend. They just kind of, ran with it for the film, and they did a good job because you're essentially taking a British story again I think the book takes place in Liverpool. Like, there's nothing American about it at all. Clive Barker's not.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Like
I
everyone.
was just referring to where they're writing their thesis and they're talking about urban legends. That's
Yeah,
kind of where that's why I thought that part was kind of cool,
I
but
thought all that's cool. I love it.
yeah.
And like, but there was a lot of actual crimes and murders that took place at Cabrini Green, so they kind of used that to build upon this lore and this story. Because I mean, this 1992 was the same year as the LA riots, right after Rodney King. It was all right there. So racial tension in
Okay.
America was as high then as it is now, or after like
Yeah.
George Floyd and things like that. That kind of racial
Mhm.
tension that we experienced here in America was maybe not as strong then, because of the internet and social media and all that jazz wasn't as prevalent yet, but it was pretty widespread, especially in those regions, those more urban
Yeah.
areas. So I thought they did a really good job of tapping into that to
Yeah,
use
and
it.
I like that they didn't shy away from it because I feel like if they had, the movie wouldn't be as well done as it was because I mean it's real life.
Yeah.
Like it's not made up folklore. People do live like that and they still do.
Oh
Like
yeah, that I mean
it
every shot of
there's
Cabrini Green's real.
Yeah, and then if you just think about going downtown Louisville,
Yeah.
even here in Kentucky, like it's not a walk in the park. Like a lot
Yeah.
of people are afraid to go down there, and I've had students that have lived in those areas or died in those areas. So like it's no joke. Like so I feel like when they use those settings, it's important because it's showing the actual rawness and reality of what the situation is. So I think the between the lore and the reality of it, it just made it a really well-rounded film.
I agree. I agree. I mean, and it's before I get into the shots and stuff, like there was another interesting fact. So they actually use all the exterior and hallway shots in the early part of the movie are actually Cabrini Green. They had to pay
Okay.
off the gangs who control Cabrini Green to be allowed to shoot there
Oh,
and to
okay.
also
Nice.
protect them. All those gang member extras at the beginning are legitimate gang members who were like, "Hey, put us in this movie." Who lived from basically who lived in the area, who lived in the green. So I think that was really interesting. There was also like apparently towards the end of them being there, like someone shot their recording truck, and it was like they had a couple of issues, but for the most part, they were allowed to film there because the gangs that controlled the buildings said it was okay,
Okay.
which is kind of crazy.
That is really interesting.
Yeah. So all those early shots of her, like when you first see Virginia Madsen's character of Helen go to Cabrini Green, that actually is Cabrini Green. The guys
Okay.
like hanging out, and that's them,
Hmm.
which I think is interesting because like I read something about all the stereotypes and all these tropes and how they were dressed, but according to what my research says, those people are just wearing their own clothes. They weren't dressed by
Yeah.
the theater. They just wanted to be in the movie. It was like, hey,
I
we'll
mean, it was
protect you.
1992. A lot
Yeah.
of the clothes they were wearing made sense. I don't
I think
And then plus,
especially,
if you're in a poor area too, like
yeah.
you're gonna have a mixture. Like some of them are gonna be dressed a little bit better because they're a little bit higher on the totem pole than some of the other, people.
Yeah.
You know what I'm
Like I said,
saying?
it's, yeah. I just thought it was interesting that they actually filmed there because that place was pretty notorious.
Yeah, I didn't know any of that. That's really interesting.
Yeah.
Although that's your stuff that you're supposed to research, so I didn't know
That's
that
right.
part.
That's what I do.
I'm just supposed to watch a movie and make comments.
What'd you think about that opening scene, which I think in 92, it was pre-drone, so it's probably a helicopter shot of them flying over Chicago with that awesome music playing?
So I put that under my music section. I thought that the music, because I put the aerial shot with the music. It starts in the beginning. It's beautifully done. Like
Yeah.
you get a true sense of like where they're at, what kind of area. Like there's urban setting. There's some rundown places. It's busy. It's bustling. There's people everywhere. There's cars driving around. But then you also have this music where it's kind of like spooky synth, and then it turns into a choral piece with organ, and that piece stays consistent all the way through the movie, and that's really the only thing I remember music wise. But I thought that if it wasn't for that music, I really loved that part. Like, and I made note that it stayed true through the film, and that it made the movie more beautiful and more like suspenseful or scary. But then I liked that those pieces were used at certain points in the film. They made sure to keep putting them in important parts.
Well, yeah, they used Philip Glass, he's widely regarded as one of the most influential composers of the 20th century.
Well,
Like
he did a
he did a
wonderful job.
And apparently in this, for him to do this score, he only used a piano, an organ, and he used those kind of haunting vocal ensemble to get those sounds. And that's it. There's no
Yeah.
strings, there's nothing. It's just those instruments. And I think he did awesome. Like I said,
I don't think it needed instruments.
no, he did a great job. Tony Todd referred to it as gothic elegance. That's what he called it.
Yes, absolutely.
The score.
And I think Tony Todd using him as to play Candyman, he is also very elegant. Even though he is very an ominous like type character and very frightening, he's also very elegant and like he doesn't seem the grotesque until he shows his hook.
Yeah.
Like other than that, like
Yeah, he's got his nice jacket on and his collar
yeah,
and his
his
voice, like
voice is oh my gosh, I love his voice.
I would
I could
venture to
listen to him talk
say
all day.
all day long. He has one of the most recognizable voices of any actor.
Yeah, and I loved his lines. His lines were
Yeah.
so precise and very direct and deliberate. And I think that I liked that he wasn't too flowery. He was like he was who he was, and he had specific things that he said
Yeah.
that you just don't forget. You know,
I think
like
that's the
I
one
love
benefit.
Freddy Krueger, but he's so flowery and like
Yeah.
he just talks all the time. Like, but you remember specifically what because I remember one of the very first notes I made about it is he says I came for you. He just continuously says I came for you. Be my victim. I came for you. Like it's like oh my gosh, it's so creepy, but it's so good.
Well, it's very much, I think that is attributed to me is when you know something is based on an author's work versus just trying to make a movie.
Yeah.
Because Clive Barker, like Pinhead, is very much like that as well. With those very much like you open the box, like those
Yeah.
kind of like those statements, but are taken as like oh okay, And this is again, it's not so much a horror movie. It has more of like a thoughtful, dreamlike, dark romance feel, and not a cheesy slasher. Like
Yeah.
how
I agree
and
with that.
like some of the other ones are like Michael Myers slasher, Freddy, he's a funny slasher, Jason slasher. All those movies of that time, the early, mid late 80s, 90s, Scream, all that stuff that came out after this, they're all just straight slashers. There's not a lot of this. This is more of, like I said, that dark romantic, that that kind of I'm here for you, you know what I mean? Because especially when they get into his lore of why he became who he was,
I
because
love that part.
they hint on that whole like how interracial relationships were highly frowned upon. Even in the 90s,
Mhm.
early 90s, it was still not looked on as it is now, and in some circles it's still looked upon negatively, but in most urban areas, people don't care. You know what I mean? Like I don't care what color person you're with. You know what I mean? Like it's just be happy.
Yeah.
But like for instance, I have a cousin whose wife is black and she's awesome. He's awesome. But when they first got together, a lot of people looked at that very negatively, like
Yeah, I
in
can see
our
that.
family and around. And I'm like, why do y'all care, man? Just let them be happy.
That's
Like
just who they love.
exactly. You know what I'm saying?
I
And
gut.
they got kids. It's awesome. Life's great. They've been together a long time. Like my mom is like one of the younger ones. I think Nick's mom is one of the either second oldest, I think, third oldest. So like he's not a ton older than me, but old enough to where they were probably married when I was still like a teenager. So I'm like, why does that matter? Why do y'all care? You know what I mean? Like, so it was interesting.
Yeah, as long as they're happy and they have a healthy relationship, why does it matter?
Yeah, but there was like a scene.
Yeah.
It was so prevalent at this time period. There was essentially there's a scene, the end when they're holding each other and they're spinning. It was supposed to be longer where he kissed her, and the studio was a little nervous about the interracial romance and made him cut it out.
That's
Yeah,
terrible. I
yeah,
mean,
it's stupid.
it's so stupid, but again, I guess I can see where they would be worried about it, and they're trying to make money,
Yeah, that's
is
all they
what it
care about,
is, and yeah, that's all they care about.
and they did make
So like
money.
stepping on toes would not have been too good, but essentially, like that was his storyline. He fell in love with a white lady, and she fell in love with him, and then that's where it all spun out from. So that's where we're
Well,
at
I
on
mean,
that.
in America, white people don't like to be reminded of slavery or pointed out to us of how wrong it is.
Well, it is. It's
Yeah,
terrible.
100%.
It's
Well, just
like
like we saw,
you cannot ignore facts in history because
yeah.
that's what it is. It's our history.
Well, we saw recently that there was like, not recently, in the last probably 5 years, of them tearing down the Confederate statues, and people are so mad about it. Like, oh, you're erasing history. It was a horrible time. that we should not forget, but we should not glorify.
No, absolutely
You
not.
know what I mean? So I think they did a good job with this. Is like, because even though there was some criticisms about, like racial stereotypes and things like that, and the white fright and all that, which is definitely apparent, especially for the time, they took a black man, made him the killer, but not like overtly like a caricature. They made him an elegant, powerful,
Yeah.
like almost like an entity more so, because he's supposed to be like this ghost that's being like, his whole thing is remember me so I survive, and they
Yeah.
hint on that. They explain that more in the new version of Candyman, which is not bad, but nowhere near as good as this one, I think. But they kind of hit on that a little bit more as to why he has to be remembered to stay alive, and that's interesting. It's cool. They touch on it here as he talks about, like, he gets mad at her because you made them no longer fear me, so like my congregation has forgotten me, and he kind of wants to remember
Yeah.
that. I think that's why at the end, like, he dies or whatever and she takes over. Luckily they didn't continue that story. I don't want to see a horror franchise done with Virginia Madsen, but
Although I did like that ending a
yeah, it was
whole
cool.
lot.
It was
Only
cool.
because of Trevor deserved what he got.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, he
I
did.
was like, I hate you so much.
So yeah, like we were saying, it starts off, she's researching them. She ends up saying the word. She goes to the green. She talks to people, gets more context, more information about the killings there, and you see the people who are so scared of Candyman. We get that really cool scene where she finds, Jake, the boy who takes her to the bathroom where a kid was
Oh my
apparently
gosh.
castrated and murdered or something.
Mm-hmm.
And there's like what looks to be written in feces, sweets for the sweet, which is a pretty well known Shakespeare line from Hamlet. And she's looking around, all the bees are in there. And then she gets attacked by, and this is the other part that alludes to that original murder, as the
Okay.
gang
Yeah.
that called himself the Candyman. And he was the one that actually apparently killed the
Ruthie
woman.
Jean.
Yeah, he killed Ruthie Jean. It was that guy that beats her up, not actual Candyman. But he was,
Yeah.
playing the role of Candyman with his,
Well,
trench
because
coat and hook and
it
everything.
was they were saying that she kept hearing things in the walls.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, that wouldn't have been Candyman. He would have just appeared. But
Yeah.
like,
They were tying it into that real killing where they came through her
yeah,
mirror.
that makes sense.
Yeah.
That makes it. If I had known that beforehand, that would have made more sense to me. Because I think that section, I was like, "Is that who?" Because I remember her having that discussion with the investigator on the case, and he was like telling her that this is the guy that's been committing all these like heinous murders,
Yeah.
and we just didn't have anything to pin it on, and it's better if we have your statement
Well, yeah.
than the little boys.
Yeah.
So,
Because they're going to believe a white lady.
yep, exactly. And
Also, yeah,
it is what it is.
sadly, yeah.
I
But,
don't know.
it makes more sense, too, though, because if you're in a community that truly fears him,
Mm-hmm.
no one in Cabrini Green is saying Candyman in a mirror 5 times.
Absolutely not.
You know what I mean? Like, no
They're not
one
stupid
there is
enough.
bringing him there. He has that
No.
reverence of fear, but I think that's what kind of comes back, is that person, and that, again, they hint on that in the new movie. That guy is killing people using the name, keeping the fear of the name Candyman, thus keeping his spirit alive, so to say, which I think is kind of
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah, I thought that was really it was a really cool tie-in with like an urban folklore,
I
instead
agree. I
of
loved it.
doing like yeah, I loved it. And I loved the murals and stuff too in the film. I thought the murals were really well done.
Yeah, they're beautiful.
Yeah, and then the one where it's like his open mouth and the
Yeah.
big eyes, like I was like that's good. I really like that.
It's one of the most memorable scenes, I think.
Mhm.
Just
When
the
they're
heart
taking
crawling through the
pictures.
mouth and it comes out, that's an amazing scene.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, there's so much visually prominent things in this movie that are so good. Like the way it's shot, the way the angles, there's a cool effect. It has some film noir vibe. Like anytime you see her being put in the trance, you get that beam of light across her eyes, so there's a focus on them.
I made note of that. I was like, it's got some Morticia Adams vibes.
Yeah,
Like they did that lighting around her eyeballs that I really liked, or like Bela Lugosi Dracula or something. But I always like those bright around the eyes and like dim around the rest of the face.
yeah. Well, that's a very
That's
film
neat.
noir kind of take on it.
Yeah.
Like, there's another fun fact here. You know how her eyes look vacant every time he's talking to her, right? Like she's being put in a
Mm-hmm.
trance. She legitimately is in a trance. The director took her to a hypnotist, and she was hypnotized to respond to a trigger phrase. Every time the director says it, she's in a trance. Like, apparently
Interesting.
it got so
Really?
bad. Yeah, apparently, and she said in interviews, it got so bad that towards the end she told him, I cannot do this anymore. because she would not remember anything. She said
Oh, that's crazy.
she couldn't hear anyone else. She didn't know what was going on. The only voice she would hear would be the director's, and she could see the lights, and that's it. Everything else was
Oh,
hazy
no.
and
I
wild.
wouldn't
Yeah.
like that either. That's kinda scary.
But it made for those scenes looking phenomenal. Like, it looks like she's legitimately in, like, a trance by him because she is. And I think that's kind
That's
of
really
wild.
interesting
Yeah.
because I feel like the last few movies we've done, some of these actresses have done the most for
Yeah.
their roles. And I'm like, I would not be buried alive. I would not have gone into a trance.
No.
I don't want to do any of that. No, absolutely not.
I think she did a good job. Like, I love
She
Virginia
did good.
Madsen,
Yeah.
especially at this time period. I mean, she has like a she's very, very beautiful. So her face, the shape has that. She has that Angelica Houston like otherworldly
She
beauty
has
to her
very
face.
expressive eyes, and
Yeah,
I think that was important to the story, is
yeah.
her
Like,
having those expressive eyes.
she was another person that had she not been available, and I'm so happy that she was. That their second choice was Sandra Bullock.
Oh, no, I love
Yeah,
Sandra, but no.
this movie would have been
She's another
terrible.
one that plays a lot of comedy.
Yeah.
I know she's gotten some new ones, but I have not seen
Well,
them.
she
I've
started
only
more
seen her.
serious, so movies like Speed and stuff like that. She wasn't comedic at the beginning
Yeah.
of her career.
Oh, no, I did like Speed,
Could you
but
imagine how bad this movie would
it's a
have
good
been though with
action
Eddie
movie.
Murphy and Sandra Bullock in it though?
Oh, absolutely not. It would not have done it would not have been the same movie.
No, not at all. Not at all.
Oh, no.
But yeah, I thought it was really cool that they did that. I really enjoyed all the sets, right? Because you start at the green, you see the graffiti. It's mostly gang graffiti and people's names and stuff. But then when you get into his like lair, you know, where she goes up to the floor, and it looks like a
Yeah.
gothic church almost, like they're paying
Mhm.
reverence to this character, this
Like an altar up there
yeah,
that she's
this
laying
true
on,
urban
and
legend. Like, it's
yeah.
almost like they're so scared of it, they're trying to appease him, right? Like, hey, let's lay
Yeah.
out something for the spirit of the Candyman so he doesn't come kill us, which I think is interesting.
It is. I loved that area though. And then she's looking at all the murals, and she's looking at the right above the altar is that big picture. Like it's just all
Yeah,
looks
it's really
looks
good.
really good. Looks really
Yeah,
good.
it was. I think it was done very well. It's they did a good job building lore because, like I said, you're taking a character. There was no lore for this, so I think they did a pretty good job building up the lore for this because it was again written by a white British man based in Liverpool about a white killer, and it's a made up urban legend. There is no real story behind it, and I think they did a really good job of
I
just
liked
building to
that
that.
it started off as an oral tradition, and there was no written explanation of him per se. And throughout the like even at the beginning, you have the one girl that's explaining the lore behind him, like and like the two kids at the beginning. And then she just happens upon the lady that is cleaning the classroom, and she's like, "Oh, well, I have a friend that knows about it." And then she brings it in. She just talks about Ruthie Jean being murdered, but she's like, "I don't know about no Candyman."
Yeah,
Like she's not about to tell, because she's not stupid. She's not gonna keep talking about it because she doesn't. She's too scared, which also plays on the fact that he is stronger with the more fear that there is. And then as the movie progresses, then you get to meet the stupid academic dude. I cannot remember his name, nor do I care to, because I did not like him.
with the long hair guy.
Yeah, he was very arrogant, which
Yes.
he put me off so hard. But he did tell that story, and I thought that his addition to the lore was interesting. And I'm glad, the one thing that they didn't do that I'm glad they didn't do is show a flashback to that scene of him, like of the like where he came from. You see what I'm saying? Like
Yeah.
a flashback of, like, you know, where the lore began. I think I appreciate it more because it was an oral telling of it.
Yeah. Well, never watch Candyman 2 and 3 then, because
Yeah.
they do that in the other ones.
Yeah, I think it takes away sometimes. Sometimes it doesn't, but I feel like in this one it would have taken away, because
Yeah, I
I feel
agree.
like a lot of times most of our lore is based on oral tradition, because it's just stories passed down from generation to generation,
Well,
and
yeah. I
then it gets written down.
mean,
So
that's what
I
all
like that.
folklore is. Like, I think all
Yeah.
folklore is oral tradition. I
Mhm.
agree. I think it was really good. And that's why I think the 2 and 3 are not bad movies. They're nowhere near as impactful or good as this one is.
Yeah.
They just don't have it. You know what I mean? Like, it's because you get a lot more about his lore. And sometimes it's hard for me to remember when I've seen so many so long ago which one had those pieces in it. They touch on why he became Candyman in this one, but you don't get the full details. Like later on, there's flashbacks about the
Okay.
bees and stuff, about how they covered him in honey after they beat him and lynched him essentially. And it's interesting. Great character. It's a great oral tradition. It really ties into the dark history of America that we try not to talk about, which I think was a good replacement for like Liverpool. Because the original story, Clive Barker talks about it. It is about segregation, but it's more based on class
Yeah,
segregation
I
and
get
not race.
makes sense.
Whereas in America, it's race and class, right? And you see that those academics with their upper like, oh yeah, we're professors, and then you go to like the residents of the Green, like they even kind of show it at the college with the two people from the Cabrini Green being like the cleaning ladies.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And
Well, and it also shows the importance of the men opposed to
yes,
the women.
yes,
That was a good that also shows like the importance between like male and female. You know, like who's a little bit more who's more revered in the academic setting
yes.
at that level. So,
Well, I think you don't see any female professors. Like she's a
mm-mm,
graduate student. Her husband is
yeah.
a professor. His friend is a professor who talks to her like she's dumb. He's already written a story about Candyman. He's hoity-toity. So it was a very good, like I said, a very good depiction, I believe,
Yeah.
of that kind of dichotomy and that split. It was also a really good visualization of the racial inequality in Chicago at the time.
Yeah.
As anyone who watches it today who's never seen it, if you're appalled by the way Cabrini Green looks, that was really how it looked. It wasn't a film set. They didn't make that up. That wasn't like a stylized version to make it look worse. That is how it looked.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I
Like that
think people
people live
forget
there.
that yeah, I think people forget that, those places actually exist.
They still exist in
Like,
New York. You
they're
know what I
not
mean?
yeah, they're not that this is not meant to, like, degrade anyone. This is just to shed light on what it looks like.
Yeah, and when you live in a place like here, like Louisville is it's a biggish small city, I guess. And we had
Yeah.
projects back in the day. They tore most of them down now. But our projects looked like apartment complexes. They weren't
Mhm.
sky like high tower buildings of just
No.
people crammed into them to get them all in one area. You know what I mean? Like that building, you see how tall it is? That was really
Yeah,
Cabrini
it's
Green.
really tall.
It's a huge building, tons of units. There's you read some of the stories about it. It got to one of those places where police didn't come. You call for help, screaming, police didn't show up. No one helped you. You were on your own. Gentrification took over. They would build up areas that was not there. So it was a really good, I think, a commentary on that, and maybe a little bit of a clumsy commentary at points. But I think he did a good job of portraying the character. I don't think he made Candyman a character. He's a very strong character, very memorable.
Mhm.
And they kind of did that Dracula thing where like she looks like the woman he loved, so he's like, I'm here for you. Like he's trying to make her be with him forever, which I think
Yeah.
was kind of romantic and cool at the same time.
Yeah, I agree with that cuz I think that's why I liked it so much. It had that feel to it.
Yeah, because he doesn't even show up halfway through the film.
No, I told Johnny that because he came home last night. He worked kind of late, and I was watching it by myself. And he walked in. I said, "Man, I still haven't seen him.
Yeah, yeah. You
Like I've only
catch him
heard him. I
in
haven't seen him."
like glimpses. When she's telling that story, the students telling her that how the Candyman killed her, like he's in the mirror, but you don't see him in regards to Virginia Madsen's character until about halfway through the film.
Yeah, and yeah, I don't really realize that she looks like the reincarnated version of his beloved until like it's time for he when he keeps saying like I don't know what I can't remember what he said. I wish I
He
would have
tells her,
written
"I'm
it
here for
down.
you. I'm here for you."
He does say I'm here for you, but he
Yeah,
says something else, like something like like talking about their union or something,
yeah.
and he needs her to like accept it or I don't know. But like I thought all that was very ominous, but it was also very beautiful how that was done too. So and how she calls on him, she's like, I can call him right now. I mean, you want me to?
Yeah, let's get him in
And
here.
I was like, oh no, don't call him because this is not going to end well for you. Oh no.
It's a great film. I love the use. This is my favorite part. Apparently, Tony Todd said he was stung 26 times over the three movies, but the majority of them was in the first one. And he somehow negotiated $1,000 bonus for every time he was stung.
He should have.
He made $26,000 for being stung by bees. So apparently,
He
in the first one, they used real bees. They brought a man in to essentially make an apiary on the roof, so they could use juvenile bees that were less than a year old because they're more docile.
mhm.
And he also apparently created a queen bee pheromone to get them to do what he wanted. So that scene where he just kind of trances out, opens his mouth, and all those bees come out of his mouth, that's not CG. Those are real bees. They put a latex barrier in the back of his mouth and filled his mouth with bees.
Absolutely not. I would
Oh,
be
yeah.
terrified of
The ones
that.
on his chest,
Well,
that is
cause
a
can't
fully
you
made
develop
rig.
an allergy if you're like stung like that?
I'm not sure. apparently Virginia Madsen was definitely allergic to bees at the time, so they did their best to keep them away from her. Like they put the pheromone on her as well, so they would not think it was a person and not sting her because she was apparently extremely allergic to bees. Like paramedics had to
But
be
they
on
were on
set
her in
the
that
whole
one
time.
scene.
Yeah, but she never got stung because she had the queen bee pheromone on her.
Okay. Oh my
Uh,
god, that is
that's
terrifying.
crazy. They had to keep paramedics like right outside the shot in case she was stung because she's like one of those like throat close up,
Yeah.
die kind of things, which I think is wild. I would not a scene where you have that many bees crawling on you and like I could die.
Have the EpiPen ready,
Yeah,
please,
can you get like a
because
epi shotgun? I'm gonna die.
shotgun.
Because that
Just
was
shoot me
bad.
right now.
So yeah, he apparently got a bonus, and it said it took half an hour to get all those bees into his mouth.
Oh
So
my
for
gosh,
half an hour, he sits there breathing through his nose because his mouth's closed up with this appliance.
No, absolutely
Yeah,
not.
and they filled
That
his mouth with
seems
bees.
okay. First of all, it would feel like you're suffocating,
Yeah.
and two, that's terrifying to have very vicious, very
Lu-
vicious insects in my
Luckily, they
mouth.
were they were like I said. Another benefit of them being so young is they don't have fully developed stingers or venom.
Yeah, but
So
I
the
mean,
bees are
still,
all
it would
brand new
still make me
bees. That's
uneasy.
also why they're kind of small.
I like bees. I'm typically not afraid of bees, but I don't want my mouth full of them.
Heck no.
So
And the other scene where they're all over his chest, that's a real appliance attached to his chest. That's where he got stung the most
I bet.
because they didn't like it. They essentially covered it in like their comb and stuff, and they made this appliance to where it looks like his rib and stuff, and they did not like it. So that's when he got stung the
That is
most.
very interesting.
Yeah, he did get. Apparently, he tells a story. I watched this little behind the scenes video. One bee did get out past the oral appliance, and he said he told the guy he could feel it crawling around in the back of his mouth, trying to go down the back of his throat. He's like, it's crawling
Nope.
around, it's crawling around. So, but he had to finish the scene because it was like, your mouth is full of bees, dude. It's too hard to do. So he's sitting there with his mouth open. There's a bee crawling around his mouth. Half an hour of that. No, I'm good. Ugh,
Oh
just
my,
the
he
idea is gross.
deserves so many kudos for that because that is terrifying in
Heck yeah, it
itself.
is. Well, he gets them. Tony, I mean, he's widely regarded as one of the like top horror actors. Like you go to a convention and see Tony Todd, his line is stupid long. Everybody wants to meet him because he's Tony
I
Todd.
mean, why not? He's awesome.
Yeah, like I've never like I don't pay to meet a lot of people, but I've seen him and he does have like that regal. He has a very imposing presence. You know what I mean? Like he just
Hmm.
has it, and he's such a good actor. You know, you see him in things that aren't horror related. He's a very strong presence on and off film. I think he did a great job. I think any random cast of actor would have taken away from what they were trying to say necessarily about what was going on at the time, which I think was been really good. And yeah, like I said, I really like it. I
I
don't have
have to
anything really
agree.
negative to say about it, really. I
I
think
don't
it's
have
classic.
anything negative either. I can tell you right now that I loved the fact that Trevor died a gruesome death at the end.
I know, right? He walked in, and of course, I love how they allude and they kind of hint that he's doing something with that girl. Like when you
Oh,
first see
yeah,
them
it's
together, you're like,
obvious.
come on, dog. Yeah, come on, son.
And she was a hoe. I
Yeah,
was
she
so
was.
mad at her. She reached out and was like, "Hi, I'm blah blah blah." I don't even remember her name. I don't even care to remember her name. I was just like, "You're having an affair with this woman's husband, and you're literally gonna reach out and shake her hand? What a conniving little bitch!" I was pissed. I was like, That is some next level."
Was she Clara or Stacy?
I don't know. I don't
I don't
care.
either. I
Like
think
I
it's
really do.
Stacy.
I hated
Carolyn
her
Lowry.
character.
Yeah,
Her and
she's
her
ridiculous.
see-through shirt at the end.
Uh huh.
I hope she gets blamed for his murder. She get
You
blamed?
know she
I hope she
would.
did.
She's holding a knife the whole time all bloody. You know she
I
did.
know, it was great. I was like, that was a deserving end. Like he's sitting there all feeling guilty at the end. I'm like, you should feel guilty, you ass,
Mm-hmm.
because not only did you know that your wife had been in an institution for her mental health for over a month.
Yeah, she's only been gone a month though. Like in a month, you moved on with a new lady, and we're letting her paint your apartment bubblegum pink.
I know, and that's a horrible. That's just I loved that part where she's like, "Oh, I hate the color scheme, by the way."
Yeah, throws
I
the
was
paint at
like,
the wall.
oh, I'm like, man, I at first I really hated Helen, but by the end I loved her because I was like, because at first I'm like, you are such a douche. Like, why are you doing all these stupid things? Like,
Yeah,
you because you don't believe in it, and it's funny because he kind of alludes to that you don't believe in me.
yeah.
So
No, who does? Like, what kid has not said Bloody Mary 3 times into a mirror at a sleepover? You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
it's urban legend. No one believes in that stuff.
so but I'm like. All these people are proclaiming that he is what he is, but you're gonna be stupid. I wouldn't do it. It's because I just don't like that stuff.
Well, you notice her thing
But
changes once she gets beat up in the bathroom. But then she kind of
yeah.
she's still not afraid of the supernatural version of it. That's why she goes back after that.
Hmm.
But she has seen like this. She has a reverence almost because like this thing happened to her. It's pretty
Yeah.
cool. I like this movie. I have a weird thing for like women covered in blood. It's because of this movie. Because like when she's like some of those scenes, she's just I don't know. I think Virginia Madsen's kind of hot. So I was like, oh, okay, sub girl.
Well, and you get to see her boobs two
Yeah.
times.
I mean, I'm sure in
So
1992, I was 10. So I probably saw this movie when I was like 11 or 12 on
I mean,
home
my titty
video.
tally was only at 3, but that was with the stupid see-through shirt at the end.
It
But
was
the
like
other two
doubling
times
up.
were her boobs.
Hey man, when you're
And she had nice boobs.
when you're
I'm
an
not good for that.
impressionable youth, it's the things you go for.
So like I said, I loved the ending, and I loved the almost like like the pyre at the end where they set it ablaze with her inside, thinking he's in
Yeah,
there, but she was. But I love how she sacrificed herself at the end to save the baby, and she actually hands the baby to the mother, which the I loved the shots of them inside the pyre and him holding her, and then and then you look out of the from the inside and you see what's her name, Anne Marie.
yeah,
You
the
see
baby's
Anne Marie
mom.
standing there,
Yeah,
and she just looks completely lost because her life was her child, and her child had been gone for at least a month, and she thought her child was dead.
I would too. I mean, if you think about it, that's your child's gone a
Yes,
month,
it's terrible.
especially in that kind of place. And you saw this crazy white woman killed your dog. You probably assume that she also killed your kid.
Yeah, because that was a crazy scene too. I was like, that was a little jarring to me, and I was like, oh dang, he like set her up.
Yeah, he was trying to make her be with him, man.
Yeah, he's like, well, everyone hates you and thinks you're the worst, and you have no one, but you have me.
Hmm.
I'm like, that's some creepy stuff right there.
I would love you forever
You-
and ever,
but
and he does.
and I loved the ending. I liked that she like almost staked him at the end, and then brought the baby out and saved the baby. And the funeral procession where you think no one's gonna show up, but them.
Yeah, the whole green shows up at the end.
Yeah, and I'm like, wow, they're all like marching in through
Yeah,
and then they drop his hook
yeah. Well,
into
because
her, and I was like, oh
think about
dang,
it. If you notice at the end too, the ending credits roll over that new portrait of that white of
yeah,
her with her hair on fire. She becomes like the burning savior of them. Because if you think about it, if Candyman is like this urban legend has plagued your
hmm,
entire world, right, for however
yep,
long, to them, especially when they found his charred remains, which is kind of odd because he's supposed to be like a ghost, but whatever. And his hook, she's almost like freed them of that fear, and thus she became that character. That's why when he says her name 5 times, she shows up. You know what I mean? So she's going to
yeah,
become like the burning woman or something like that. Like she is a new urban legend that is a
yes.
continuance of that other one, which some people critiqued about them kind of whitewashing the end of it, but I thought it was really cool. And I think kind of, again, I'm a white person, but not romantic, but like did it some justice. I'm glad they didn't show her killing anybody else other than her shitty ex-husband who deserved it. But I liked it. I thought it was cool. Like she does save the
I
baby, and they
That's what
talk
I'm
about it
saying.
in the
Like,
new movie too.
I thought it was a cool ending because Trevor deserved that
Yes, yes, yes.
wholeheartedly. Like, I don't give a shit if you felt guilty or not. You should feel guilty because you treated her horribly.
Mm-hmm.
Like, well, she's just gonna hook you at the end. That's fine.
Pretty much.
And then your little bitch ass girlfriend is gonna go to jail because she got
Yeah.
framed for killing
No
you.
one's gonna believe it was a lady in the mirror. No, you're crazy. Yeah, it was
You're
weird, man.
crazy
Like,
too.
she got gaslit a lot in this by her husband, by Candyman, and at the end, she kills him and takes his place, which I thought was kind of a nice little full circle situation at
Mm-hmm.
the end. But yeah, so I had nothing really negative to say about this movie. I'm a fan. I've always been a fan since I saw it the first time. I did forget to mention one person. Ted Raimi's in this movie. He's in that flashback with the girl. The first girl gets killed, which I think is kind of funny. He's looked exactly the same his whole life. You look at him now in movies when he makes cameos now, it looks exactly the same. I'm like, dude, you look crazy. And there was another thing I wanted to add too. Two cool things. When you see Candyman walking, they took the sound of his footsteps out to add more of that powered by superstition come to life, more of that like that basically saying that he's not there, like he is like this otherworldly being, which I think is kind of cool.
Mm-hmm.
Like in the parking garage when he walks to her and stuff, like you don't hear any footsteps ever from him. Like he's almost not moving. And then
Well, and
apparently
you don't see his mouth moving.
No, he just speaks. And his
Yeah, he's
voice
just
has the
speaking.
echo on it.
Hmm.
And then Bernard Rose, which again is the director, he had Virginia Madsen and Tony Todd take ballroom dancing classes to build upon their romantic connection. So
Okay.
you see them when they're close like that, combined with the trance-like state that she's put in, you get that like really just kind of like, which I think was really good.
Yeah, he definitely has a Dracula feel.
Yeah,
For
yeah,
sure.
yeah. And he's a little old now, but if they were going to recast Dracula and put a black dude, I would not be mad. They cast Tony Todd.
Oh, heck no, I would love it.
He'd have been a
I'd be like,
powerful
"Yeah."
Dracula. He's a little too old
Yes,
now,
he
but in
would.
this time
Yeah.
period, I'd watch it. I'm here for it.
I would have watched it
I'm here
or
for it.
watch it.
Yeah, just the way he
Whatever. I love
talks.
vampire movies.
I mean,
So,
I'd say
yes,
his
he's
voice
very elegant.
alone. Yeah, his voice alone is like whatever you say. Okay,
Yes,
it's like a
I
more
like a good voice.
seductive version of Morgan Freeman, where it's like you tell me to do it, I'll just do it. Whatever.
Oh yeah, cuz he has a sexy voice. He's
Yeah,
not like Morgan Freeman. Morgan Freeman is just like, I'm going to tell you what the
yeah.
story is and you're going to sit and listen, and I'm like, "Okay, I'll
I'm
listen."
saying Morgan Freeman playing the role of God in that Jim Carrey movie is super accurate. Like, yep, that's what God sounds like. Thank you, Morgan Freeman. I mean, Jesus.
Beautiful.
Yeah. All right, you want to get into the rubric?
Yes, rubric.
All right. So, literary element, script, story development, dialogue, character development. So, the narrative supports all of the literary elements, most of, only a couple, one or none. I'm going 25 on this.
Yep,
I
I am
can't.
too.
I mean, it's the script is so good. What it's based on is really good because it's Clive Barker, who like I said, I'm a big fan of. I think his writing is very powerful and just kind of intense and creepy and dark. And it played really well to this. Even changing the setting and the character's race and backstory, I think it just added a whole new level of significance and ominousness. I guess that's not really a word, but it just added that to it and did not take anything away. So yeah, 100% 25.
Yeah.
All right, the FX design element. So visual effects elements that connect to the narrative, set design, overall character design, gore, practical effects versus digital. That's a whole nother 25 for me. I mean, the man put
Yep.
bees in his mouth, bees on his chest. The blood looks good. There is one little thing I would ding it for. The scene when he gets yanked out of the window after killing the doctor. You can see the harness attached to his back.
Okay. I didn't
Like if
notice
you
it.
look closer in the breaking glass, there's a black cord. You see it. But that I'm not really gonna ding it. I mean, if not, I'd give it a 24 if nothing. Like that would be like my only ding because it's so good. The bees
No,
look
I liked
good. The gore is
in the
good.
scene at the end with her like crawling out of the flames with the baby and she's
Yeah,
like
on
on
fire.
fire and they're
Yeah,
yeah, and you can see her hair just melting away from her scalp and like that looked really
yeah.
good.
And that's
His
actually
hook looked
built.
very
Like a set
what?
designer built that tower. It's built with tunnels in it. Like they made that. That's designed. It's not just a pile of
That's
trash.
cool.
Like they had the Chicago, like I watched the thing I watched, they delivered all that trash there. And then the set designer, the lady that also built the cathedral, I think, and did the graffiti or helped with the graffiti, went through and they built it out to where there has open spaces and open tunnels. It has supports built into it, which I think is really cool. Because you don't see anything. It just looks like a big pile of trash she's squeezing through, but it's like that on purpose. There's a spot for the camera and all that jazz.
I think like the like the focal point through like the medicine cabinets was really well done and
Yes. Oh my
like all
God.
the murals and the
Yeah.
graffiti and
That hole in the wall in
it
his mouth is it's such an iconic
yeah.
scene.
And the scene where she closes the curtains in her apartment and she's flipping through the pictures that she took.
Yeah, and she's all
I
drinking and
liked
smoking a lot.
yeah, I like that scene a lot too. I think all of the everything was so intentional and I like it when it's intentional.
And
It's not like just thrown in.
it goes back to that film noir kind of aesthetic, which I like. I kind of miss that in movies. You don't see a lot of smoking anymore, but that like how light plays through the smoke and the camera lens, I think adds a really nice element to some scenes, and they did it here too. All right, so 225s there. Let's go on to the visual technical element. So the overall aesthetic of the film is pleasing to the eye. Lighting, creative camera shots, and movement and lens selection. So I just kind of spoke on that a little bit, but from opening to ending, there's amazing shots in this movie.
Yeah.
Like that opening scene with the helicopter, it's so smooth and it has that creepy music, and you almost see the transition of Chicago from like the opulence of the city to like the projects being darker and more sparse. Some of those film noir shots, I love them. I love film noir though. I think it's an amazing, often underutilized lighting skill that just adds so much drama to a shot, which I'm really a fan of. So for me, it's the aesthetic is definitely pleasing to the eye. The lighting is great. Like those kind of, like I said,
The lighting was really well done,
those
for
highlights of
sure.
her eyes and how he's portrayed, like kind of dark, but you kind of see this ominous outline. I think it's really good. And even in scenes where it is supposed to be dark and dingy, it just looks really good. Like those
Yeah.
candlelit scenes, or like when they turn the lights off and he's just there. The only kind of off-putting one I would say is when her character, her urban legend style character shows up in that weird flash for no reason, like that pulse where she shows up where it's like a strobe. I didn't care for that
Yeah.
very much. Other than that, yeah, I'm with it. So what do you think here?
I don't have anything negative to say.
You gonna give it another 25?
I would.
We about to go with a Nightmare on Elm Street part two here. This is gonna get a perfect score because I know what I'm about to
Possibly.
say with the sound element is perfect. Like it really is. There's not a single
I
bad use
know.
sound in this movie. He
No,
does
it's
so
all well
good.
done.
But I think the choice to pick Philip Glass, who is like one of the greatest living composers around, was genius. I'd say I can't imagine the chunk of budget that went to him, because really Tony Todd wasn't a huge actor at the time. So there's no big name in it other than like Virginia Madsen, really.
I thought the music was beautifully done. That was the first note I made,
Oh
and
yeah.
then it kept building on that same score
Mm-hmm.
throughout the entire movie, and they placed it so well and used fractions of that score throughout the movie. I just think that the way that it stayed consistent, and then it also building, I thought it was just he knew how to score a movie.
I think of
So,
this time period, this is probably one of the best film scores there is.
I mean,
Like, it's like you said, it starts at the beginning, it builds, you never lose that same cohesive sound. There's no like, let's throw in some 90s rap songs for no reason. Everything makes makes sense.
and I expected that at one point that there would be when they got to Cabrini Green, and I'm so glad that they didn't, because I feel like that would have taken me out of it, because I'm like, they are not that needed to stay a score, because it shows the ominous feeling that you would feel if you drove up to that building. Like, I wouldn't want to walk into that building,
No, not at all.
and it's all out of safety, and even the people who lived there were afraid to walk into their own building. So
Yeah.
it's not like, so I just think that sticking with the score was ideal in this
Yes, I
situation.
agree. And even score alone, like the kind of ethereal nature they added to his voice really adds to the
Mm-hmm.
scare factor. It gives him that gothic elegance, that creep factor. He says, you're like, oh, okay. You know what I mean? It adds to that ethereal, urban legend, otherworldly nature that he has. And that was a good choice, I think, because Tony Todd's voice is very prominent, but his voice in Candyman has an effect on it. It has that kind of like,
Yeah.
kind of feel like, the whole be my victim, like it's there, and I love it. I think it was so well put, and well used, and no one else could have played this character. Like even in
No.
the newer one,
No.
it's not as good because it's not him. You know what I mean? Like he is the Candyman, as far as I'm
It's like you
concerned.
say about Freddie.
Yeah, it's Robert
Robert
Englund.
England.
No one can
Yeah.
deliver those lines, and when you build a character and the actor puts that much of themselves into it, you can't replace that. He's another
No.
face killer. That's why, like in the newer one, a little bit was, I guess, a little spoiler. I like how they did it, where it was different versions of people become this character. It wasn't them. It wasn't them saying, "Oh, we recast Candyman." Tony Todd's
Yeah.
Candyman is still the Candyman. He's just that iteration of Candyman, which I really like, because no one will ever replace them. No one can ever be Tony Todd. There's not a single actor on the planet that can fill his shoes. I don't think so. He has the voice,
No.
the look. And again, as a big person, being tall, you have that presence. I have that state of, like, I have a presence. Just like anybody that's my size, you're going to have a presence. His is like, boom, I'm here.
Yeah, I
He's
just
six
kind
foot
of fly
five.
under the radar.
Yeah,
I'm
like
like, you, and I'm
I'm
gone.
there. If I walk in a
I'm
place,
elusive.
you know it, and he's the same.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. I'm so happy that they couldn't afford Eddie Murphy and he was too short, because if this movie had Eddie Murphy in it, it would not be regarded as the classic that it is.
I think it's cool that he kind of towers over her too,
Yes, yes. And it
because
wasn't
he
an
needed to
effect.
tower over her. Yeah,
Yeah.
like he needs to feel more, not
Yeah.
overbearing is not the word I'm looking for, but he just needs to be larger.
Yes, he needs that presence.
Yeah.
That intimidation, that he needs, that just that presence. Really, it's just a presence. So there you go guys. Literary element 25, visual or FX design element 25, visual technical 25, sound element 25, Candyman gets a perfect
Yes.
100 because it's the
You
Candyman.
know, I knew this was gonna happen. I said that yesterday. I
Yeah.
said, this one's gonna score super high because it was really good.
Well, it's a classic, and I think anytime we do a classic, it's going to have multiple things because it's we are looking at it critically and through this rubric, but it also has. But it's actually no, scratch that because you just watched it for the first time. You don't have the nostalgia factor that I do. So
No.
you're viewing this, and this is actually the best because with Nightmare on Elm Street, we both had nostalgia on it. We love that
Yeah.
movie. We were going to score it high regardless, but you just saw it, so it's fresh eyes versus someone that probably watched it in '93. I've seen it a good 12, 15 times. I love this movie.
Yeah, and I also watched it by myself.
Yeah,
So I had a different like sometimes when I watch stuff with Johnny, we tend to talk occasionally through the movie, like
yeah.
if it's just me and him. And I feel like me watching it by myself too added a different element to it. So I felt I loved the story quality of it and how like ethereal it all felt.
Yeah.
It's just really well
It
done.
has a
So I
romance vibe, it has a horror
yeah,
vibe, it has everything that you would need. It's not just I said, just a cheesy slasher. It's a dark
yeah, and I
romance.
didn't get that feeling. Yes, that's what I loved about it. I
Yeah,
thought like his character I empathized with and I really enjoyed his character. It was so well written and
agreed.
he was just beautifully done. Like he did a great job. I would love to meet him. So
I
there's
know.
that.
Like, next time he goes to a convention, I may try to. I've always it's one of those things he's a little pricey because he's Tony Todd. And like I said, I've seen him at conventions. I've only ever paid to meet a couple people. He is one though that I think I probably should before it's too late, just because of how impactful he has been on horror
Mhm.
and just film in general. But yeah, so let's see. Yeah, guys. So I guess that's it. Candyman got a 100, perfect score. Great film. If you haven't watched it, I'm sorry. We just told you all about it, but you should watch it anyway because I don't think we do it the most justice in describing all of the stuff it has. It's a
No.
beautiful
There's a
movie,
lot of good in it.
shot beautifully, beautiful score, wonderfully acted. Couple little whatever spots like every movie has its like down little down kind of points, but they pick up immediately. There's great insight into the racial tensions of the early 90s. I think it's good to look at these things. Sometimes we think that our current period is the worst ever, but it's good to look at and see that we thought that in 92 as well. And there's ebbs and flows, and I think this was one of those. This was definitely worth checking out. I'm really glad we started our Black History Month series with this, because I think this is like
Me too.
the one of the earlier ones, most prominent. And it's easy to look at things today like and say, oh well, that's because of this, but racial tensions were just as high then, I think, as they are now, especially in like LA area. Like right after Rodney King was wild. I mean, LA riots had happened the same year. I want to say this was after the LA riots. It's the end of the year. So like all that was taking place at the same time.
Yeah.
So it's a really good insight to the views of things at the time. And while it does have some criticism for some of the racial undertones and the interracial stuff and some of the white fright, I think it really has a very prominent message. It's very strong. It doesn't portray, to me, the black people in the movie as characters. They are who they are, and I think as long as you can look at it through the lens of 1992 and not 2023, you see that was like not maybe a closer than what we sometimes want to admit view of some of the areas. But I also like that you have those kind of those gangster people, but then you have just the hardworking people that live in the building,
Yeah,
right?
because it's not like that the gang members don't represent the community.
No, they're
The
just a part
community
of it.
is yes, it's a small part of it actually, because you have so many people that are working and working hard and don't want that lifestyle for their children. And Anne Marie was a good representation of that because she when you walked into her home it was very warm and welcoming, and she had her dog, but her dog was a means of security.
Yeah,
And then she wanted the best life for her son. She said he's all I have, and I don't want him to end up victim of all the stuff going on. And she
yes,
really just meant she didn't want him to become part of that gang activity. And I feel like a lot of even like you think about single parents, single women with their children, or grandparents with their grandkids, they don't want that lifestyle for their kids.
no,
It's
no,
just it is generational a lot of time because of poverty, but essentially they come from hardworking people, and
I agree.
I like that they touched on that. Anne Marie was a good addition to the movie.
I believe so. I think well, it's a good juxtaposition. She's a strong
Yeah.
character. It got to see,
Mm-hmm.
like you just said, she's just a hardworking single mother who's doing the best she can to give the best life to her child. It
Yep.
doesn't paint
Exactly.
every single black person as a gang member in the movie like some movies do. Doesn't
And
make
her
them
friend
all the
Bernadette
criminal.
was black.
Yeah, and she was
So, I
also a
mean,
graduate student, so it has both. There's a little bit of things,
mhm,
and like I said, there's some things you can take away from it, and some stuff that, of course, we're never going to inherently understand because we're both white people.
yeah.
But I think overall, it's a great film. It has will have a forever lasting impact on horror and film all alone, right? I think if you look at this, not even from a horror movie standpoint, because like I said, there's not the character of Candyman is not even in it for half of it. It's just a beautiful movie. It's got a
Yes,
beautiful
it is.
score. It's got some beautiful cinematography. It's well written. It's based on a really good story by Clive Barker. So yeah, guys, definitely check it out. And hopefully, like I said, with this being a new month, we do have a new book. You should already know the announcement. So hopefully, you're reading along with us. And yeah, we'll sound like we're gonna get out of here. What do you think? Anything else you want to add before we head out?
I can tell us where to find everybody where to find us.
Yeah, tell them what the book is, and then tell them where to find us.
Oh, okay, the book is My Soul to Keep, and I want to say her name, and I want to say it correctly, but I'm probably going to butcher it. But it's Tananarive Dew. I might have said it incorrectly, but it is My Soul to Keep. So I'm
Good deal.
excited to read
So
that one. It's been recommended to me many times, and I still haven't read it. So this is a good time for me to read it as any.
there you go. If you don't
But
follow us on
you can,
socials, then you'll know because I'll
yeah, it's like Logling.
yeah.
And then I'll actually look up the pronunciation of her name because I think I might have said it wrong, but I tried. So follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Horror in the Halls. You can also follow us at Jenny_Dreadfuls on Instagram. You can email us at horrorinthehalls@gmail.com. We would love to hear from you.
All right, guys. And with that, that's going to be the bell. We're going to get out of here. We'll see you next time.
Bye.